Next two games without Jamo, and Adam Amin from Fox is with us.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, here we go, everybody. It's a Tuesday edition of a Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd into Wednesday, October 23rd. Thanks for checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you to all of you that subscribe and watch for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. How about Sunday's podcast following Lions Vikings is at 20,000 views, our third highest show in terms of views that we've ever done on the YouTube side. It's been a couple of years on YouTube. We're here on Locked On Lions. So thanks for checking us out. YouTube blowing up Sunday after the Lions' big win over the Minnesota Vikings. Hey, Jameson Williams played in that game. He won't be playing in the next two games. We're going to discuss that coming up momentarily. Also, Adam Amin, who was on the play-by-play call on Fox alongside Greg Olsen, will join us momentarily on the podcast today. Don't forget to also check out our SpeakPipe voicemail system. You want to leave a voicemail that I would play on the air? Maybe we'll do one tomorrow or Thursday for call of the day. Please go to speakpipe.com/Dery podcast page and leave a voicemail. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, and also the Matt Dery Facebook fan page. Before we talk to Adam Amin from Fox, the news of the day broke last night. Great job by Eric Woodyard from ESPN.com with help from Adam Schefter, but Eric had the story. Jameson Williams, the Lions' third-year wide receiver, is having a really good year. Didn't play great against Minnesota Sunday, but I thought the Vikings keyed on him so much that it opened up other things below and underneath for guys like Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams has been suspended. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but Jamo is going to be out the next two games, Tennessee this week, at Green Bay next week, for violating the PES policy, performance enhancing substances policy. It's a 2-game suspension. It could be a masking agent. It could be something light. But regardless, Jameson Williams with another self-inflicted wound. First suspended last year for gambling. Now this year it's performance-enhancing substances. Eric got a hold of Jamo, who said, hey, I'm in good spirits and I'll be back ASAP. Oh, I'm glad you're in good spirits, Jamo. That's great. I'm glad you're in good spirits. How about your teammates? How about your teammates? Think they're in good spirits if they're going to have to go into Green Bay without you? How about the fans that are going to spend a lot of money on hotel, on tickets, on travel, whether it's flight or filling up your gas tank? I'm sure those fans are in great spirits knowing that you once again screwed your team. Now, he's a young guy. He's in his third year. Young people make mistakes. What's he, 23 years old? I've got a 23-year-old. But my gosh, how much more is Brad Holmes and this front office going to take of this guy screwing up? This is a well-oiled machine. It is one of the best organizations, not just in the NFL, but in all of pro sports. Guys are on a string. It's one pride for real. It's a close-knit group. Guys are not messing around. Guys are all business. They take this seriously. They want to win a Super Bowl. And this is twice now in the last 2 years where Jameson Williams is breaking the rules and costing his team. I'm not picking up his 5th-year option after this year. Why would you? He's just going to screw up again. I hope he grows up. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but my goodness, he's really good. He's starting to come into his own. Yeah, he had one catch for -4 yards in it against the Vikings, but he is a damn good blocker for a wide receiver. Brian Flores took him away, but the Vikings spent a lot of time worrying about Jameson Williams. He is a factor offensively. He's got such good speed. He's getting open. His routes he's running are good. He's catching the football. He said, one drop this year. Other than that, he's really been great. But a performance-enhancing substance and a 2-game suspension and having to miss next week, especially at Green Bay, just sucks. And that's a thin position for the Lions right now. I mean, they could get Allen Robinson out of mothballs or Isaiah Williams or somebody like that. Tim Patrick has stepped up and been good. Kali Freeman's solid. Amon-Ra is one of the best receivers in the game. But Jameson Williams is a game changer. And not having him at Lambeau, because, this is unacceptable. You know what to take and not to take from substance standpoint. If I'm not sure, I ask an athletic trainer. They've got 17 trainers on the staff. They've got nutritionists. They've got all sorts of people. Pick up the phone, text, whatever, and ask before you put something in your body and make sure it's okay. This is twice now in the last 2 years. And I know he was injured before, and that's why he got off to a slow start as a rookie. I understand. He was coming back from a torn ACL. It's not something I hold against him. But he needs to be on the field. He's that important. He's that good. I have an immense amount of respect for his game. But, I'm in good spirits. Sweet. That's nice. You let your teammates down. Again, I don't care what kind of spirits you're in, to be quite honest. This is a guy that's important. This offense is clicking right now. Jared Goff is humming. MVP candidate. Offense has been awesome. So you figure on Sunday against Tennessee. By the way, the Lions have never beaten the Tennessee Titans. 0-6. But you have to figure that'll change this week. But you have to also, if you're a Sam Laporta fantasy owner, I'm assuming we're going to see more of Sam Laporta this week getting opportunities. Also, very quickly, Dan Campbell was asked this morning on the Stoney and Jansen program on 97 with the ticket about the Jameson Williams situation. Campbell said he's not allowed to mention or talk about it yet, but will be fine, was his quote. They'll be fine without him. Also, Dan Campbell did admit Brad Holmes is working the phones very hard. He's grinding, and Brad has gone to Dan on a couple of occasions to ask him about certain edge rushers and his thoughts on them. That's what's great about Dan Campbell. He is so transparent. He tells the media and goes on the radio. He's a great interview. So Brad Holmes, yes, working the phones for sure. Trying to make a move to get some sort of Aiden Hutchinson replacement in here. Dan Campbell admitted that this morning. All right, coming up next, you're on a Tuesday Locked On Lions. Adam Amin from Fox, who was on the play-by-play call this weekend. We will talk to Adam next, get his thoughts on the Lions and what he saw this weekend, right here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions. Locked On Lions, as always, brought to you by America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you might have done this last night when you're watching the 2 games. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's FanDuel. You get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All right. Pistons open up tomorrow night against the Pacers. Want to put some money down on season win total or the game itself? You could do so at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com, America's number one sportsbook. And we're also brought to you today by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I am always on LinkedIn. I'm always seeing people posting, and it really is a great place to post your job opening. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So check it out. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, as promised, everybody, the man on the call this past Sunday, the Lions' big win in Minnesota on Fox alongside Greg Olson, was Adam Amin. They did a fantastic job, and Adam joins us today here on Locked On Lions. What's up, brother?
Good to see you again, Matty. Good to talk to you as always.
I know, bro. You did a great job the other day. I thought you and Greg
Thanks,
were
man.
on it. That must have been a fun game. That environment was nuts. And what'd you think?
I mean, you hope you run into a game like that, a couple times a year, and that's the hype surrounding it was real. Just because I think a lot of people were curious as to what this Minnesota team would do against what I thought was probably their toughest game of the season. They've had some good opponents. Houston's a good team, really good team. San Francisco, even before some of the injuries, they're a really good team. But I still think a lot of us who cover the NFC a lot. Not exclusively, but a lot, still look at Detroit as probably the most complete team in the NFC. So to get a 5-0 Minnesota team, to get the Lions coming in hot off the two great offensive games, I think Minnesota has turned into one of the 2 or 3 best places to watch a game in the NFL. Just the atmosphere is amazing, the chants, and it feels a little bit like a college game. And I mean, talent, the elite receivers. Sam Darnold's playing at a high level. Jared Goff's playing probably as good as anybody in the league right now, quarterback-wise. So to get that matchup with that atmosphere, good audience, I'm sure the numbers will be good and all that stuff. But the game lived up to it, man. The game lived up to the billing. Greg and I were sitting there going, I hope this game lives up to the billing, and it absolutely did. And we couldn't have been more happy. And what a way to finish it. It's such a good game.
I want to dive more into the game. I got to get your thoughts, though, on this Jameson Williams suspension, performance-enhancing substance, 2 games. He only catches 1 ball the other day, but, the receivers, as you saw firsthand, really block. Jamo did a great job in blocking. It wasn't and he's a decoy. And now they've got to respect him. And, Brian Flores maybe took him away, but what are your thoughts on that? And then in 2 weeks, Lions-Packers, he won't be there.
Yeah, that's a big loss, obviously, for that game, and especially for a Green Bay defense that wants to keep, doesn't want to give up the big play. And I'm not saying Jameson can only grab the big play ball anymore. I think that's the big difference, right? I think that's something that Ben Johnson talked to us about. I'm sure that's the case for a lot of teams that have threats like that. They want to be able to use them week to week, depending on the game plan, depending on how they think a defense is going to play them, as either a decoy or as a legitimate deep ball threat. And Jameson's route tree is getting more intricate. We've heard a lot about that over the course of the last couple of weeks. Ben did say to us that other guys have deep shots in this playbook. It's not just plays down the field for Jameson Williams. Other guys have those deep shots available to them in their playbook and their route tree. And I think they did a good job of finding that. Tim Patrick ran a couple of long routes when he was in the game. The touchdown to St. Brown was a deep route. So I think having that versatility, having multiple guys that can run multiple routes, including deep balls and intermediate stuff, is great. It does stink for the Lions right now to lose Jameson Williams, and I don't know all the details about what took place and what the substance was or whatever. It's only a 2-game suspension, which obviously is a good thing in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, that's going to be a tough loss against Green Bay, because I had a lot of questions about Green Bay's secondary. I think they've played really well to this point this season. I think defensively, I had a lot of questions for them. They've played very well so far. So to not have Jameson both in the run game as a blocker and as a guy who can run multiple routes to try to draw defense away from whatever the target might be, whether it's St. Brown, whether it's Tim Patrick, whether it's Raymond, whether it's Laporta, guys out of the backfield, that's a big loss, obviously, for Detroit.
Adam Amin, play-by-play man for Fox, of course. I caught him on the baseball playoffs. Also does the Chicago Bulls TV, getting ready to go to New Orleans for Bulls Pelicans, and was on the call for Lions and Vikings. Interesting. Minnesota goes up 10-0. You mentioned just the atmosphere at US Bank and everything else. Lions kind of quieted the crowd. In your conversations with Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and everybody that they provide you, you just get a sense that there's that calm there. And this is the Lions. In the past, it was fold the tent, we're going to get smoked. Now there's just, you probably were thinking in the booth, right? This game's far from over, because maybe those conversations you have where you just know, right? This is a more calming environment, is it not?
I think so. I think that's totally fair. And I think that comes with time and familiarity with the respective systems on both sides of the ball. There's a very confident feel. I mean, Dan, as you guys have seen over the last few years, like, he just breeds this kind of energy and this confidence. And there's a reason that guys gravitate to him. And there's a reason that You never feel like Detroit's out of a game. Jared Goff has had, 10 of these, I think, now with the Lions? Maybe, I think, 11 if you count the playoffs, these game-winning drives. Like, it's not like the Lions haven't been in these positions before, and they've been able to succeed with Jared Goff and with their defense. I think Greg pointed this out, and I think what the Lions are right now is a function of a couple of things. Their defense can change the game in a heartbeat, and even without Aiden Hutchinson. Now, obviously, if Hutch is healthy, that's a completely different element to this group, right? Because the ability to get to the quarterback and drives quickly, or something that he's pretty good at, and I think the other guys are too, is just forcing turnovers from the quarterback position, whether it's forced fumbles or whether it's strip sacks. That element is still there. Even without Hutchinson, the back end of this defense, I mean, Brian Branch has played out of it. The last 2 games, Brian Branch, since he came back, has played out of his mind. Kirby Joseph has played excellent football. Their corner, Arnold's getting better. He didn't play well in the run game, but I think he's better in pass coverage than what he showed. Carlton Davis is a veteran corner now at this point. Their ability to take the ball away, I think it's now 10 straight games that they've had a takeaway. They had a great game against Dallas, but they got the longest streak going of I think it's 10 games now taking the ball away. You flip the games with takeaways, right? That's one part of it. And the other part of it, the sign of a great offense, and Greg pointed this out, to be as sluggish as you are or to struggle out of the gate, that's fine, right? Like sometimes coordinators just come up with a great game plan. And Brian Flores is a great coordinator who came up with a unique style and used it selectively when he wanted to put either pressure on Goff or to disguise coverage and make it tough on Goff. And he did that for the first handful of drives. The sign of a great offense is that you can turn it on by making an adjustment, by looking elsewhere, by running a different style of play, by taking advantage of a team's aggressiveness. And I thought we started to see that as the game wore on. And we had, there was that stretch where it was 4 straight touchdown drives, and that got the Lions in the game, right? And in the matter of a couple of possessions on both sides of the ball, this team has the ability to get back into a game. Combine that with the familiarity, the talent level, the belief in Campbell and Johnson and Glenn, the structure that they've created. I don't think there's a game where this team will ever be truly out of it. I have a really hard time, other than, I don't think it happened last year other than the Baltimore game, right? The Ravens just steamrolled them. It happens. They're great. They were and are a great team. Other than that, did you ever feel like the Lions were really completely out of a game? No, they never really felt like that last year outside of maybe 1 or 2 examples. So I think those are the signs of great teams, and the Lions have those signs right now and have for the last couple of years.
The crews, and obviously you're on one of them, get these opportunities, whether it's Fox, CBS, ESPN, Mike and Chris on NBC, to talk to these coaches. You sit down with Dan Campbell on Saturday. Is he more transparent than any other coach? Like, how do you compare him? And do you know you're going to get some juicy stuff from him each time you get the Lions?
I mean, he's one of the best because I think he gets it. We don't ask for state secrets, and especially analysts. Like, the guys know the game. Like, I don't think it's coming into a game. It's never really that much of a shock as to what you're seeing. Right? Like, based off of what you know about the defense and what you know about the offense and on both for both teams, you never really are sitting there going like, oh, well, this is breaking news that we're going to get. You come in with an understanding of what this team is good at, what this team is contending with on the other side defensively, and you kind of ask, hey, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? And Dan's always really forthright about that stuff. But the real mark of these guys, whether it's Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Campbell himself, how do you make an adjustment going forward? And to have those conversations with guys, I think is really enlightening. And I think the assumption is when we go into these meetings, I think the casual fan is just like, well, are they telling you game plan stuff? And I don't really like that either because, I don't think coaches are looking to do that. And you know that, Matt. You've been in these rooms. You've been in these meetings. You've interviewed these guys. College football, maybe more so, but football coaches in general are as paranoid as they come for the most part. Right now, I understand why. These games are so weighty. There's only 17 shots at this for an NFL coach every year. So, I understand all these games have such weight on them. But to listen to these guys speak conceptually and philosophically, I think is where I really enjoy it. I like to hear why Dan is as aggressive as he is. I like to hear why Ben Johnson thinks about offense the way he does. I like to hear how in his head Brian Flores wants to play him. And then we see if those concepts and those philosophies play out on the field. And those conversations to me are really, really fun. And when you get people like Dan, like Ben, like Aaron, who are pretty forthright about this as much as one can ask them to be, and as much as one really wants them to be.
Yeah.
I think these are really fun conversations to have. I love Mike Tomlin. Like I've always said, I think Mike Tomlin might be my favorite coach in sports just to deal with. I think he's a straight shooter. I think he's an engaging human. I think he speaks to you as a human being and thinks about things in a broad manner, and then is able to kind of narrow it down and take these really hard concepts and make them a little bit more digestible, and also speak about being a coach on a human level. I think Dan's a very similar person. Forget coach. I think Dan's a very similar person in that regard. And, you really feel the energy off him. That's that. If nothing else, you feel why guys and understand why guys gravitate towards somebody like that. I think that's the real fun part, especially for somebody like me that played sports, not at a very high level, but always enjoyed coaching, always enjoyed the relationships, always enjoyed listening to people who devote their time to these things. I really find that fun. I find it enlightening. I find it engaging, and I always walk away learning something, and that's my favorite part of it.
More with Adam Amin coming up next. I want to ask him about the rest of the NFC. He mentioned the Packers before, and where does he see the Lions in the hierarchy right now? We'll do that next here on a Tuesday, Locked on Lions. And very quickly, Locked on Lions today brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. Get your tickets at Game Time. It's encouraged. I'm telling you, everybody wants us to tell us all the time. It's not just about sports. You can get tickets for all events, concerts, shows, etc. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Pistons getting started, Red Wings in action. You want tickets to that stuff and more? Check out Game Time. It really is a great app, and the view from your seat is the best. You get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you are sitting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. We are with Adam Amin from Fox, play-by-play man. We'll be on the call of the Bucks and Falcons this Sunday. Got the Bulls this week as well. Are you DJing at all this week, or is that
Friday night? In fact, yeah, after
oh my gosh,
after a Bulls game in Milwaukee, it's one of those fun weeks, so we get to do a lot of different things. So.
Yes. For those that don't know, just check out Adam. He is a remarkable DJ. Him and Shaq. Have you ever DJ'd with Shaq or ever talked to Shaq about it?
I haven't talked to him about it. I met Shaq many years ago before I was doing this side. I think it was before he was really doing it too. But he made a great point. He said the only way I can get that same Game 7 feeling is like in front of crowds, and this is the way I feel nervous now playing shows again. Is kind of gets the adrenaline moving in a different way now. So. I can. It might be the only time that Shaq and I might have the same philosophy on something, or might be thought of as similar people. But that's definitely one avenue that we're both locked into.
I love it. All right, so you've seen most of the league here. We're only 6-7 weeks in, but where are the Lions in the hierarchy? Are they the best team in the NFC that you've seen? And will that game in 2 weeks in Green Bay, I'm not going to say decide the division or decide the NFC, but are those the best two teams in the NFC, do you think?
I mean, I put Detroit up as the best team in the NFC. It's really hard with San Francisco. The expectation was that the Niners would kind of get back to that level, but the health issues are what obviously are killing them right now. No McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel's hurt, Brandon Ayuk's out. They've had defensive injury issues, so that's just a tough situation to be in. So understanding that you kind of take. You don't assume the same thing out of the Niners that you probably would have had they been fully healthy. So take them kind of out of the equation. Green Bay, I think, has been really impressive. I think Jordan Love being in that offense and the weapons that they have. Again, I would say the same thing with Detroit, like just two similar offenses, two similarly built teams, right? Multiple offensive weapons, multiple guys to throw to, establish your running game and have somebody that you can lean on in Josh Jacobs and make sure the line is playing at a good level. And so far, the Packers have answered a lot of the questions that I think I and other people had about them. So playing well on both sides of the ball. I don't know if I'm still not sold as Green Bay being the best team or the the next best team outside of Detroit. But there's not a lot of, I would say,
Heavyweights.
heavyweights. I think that's fair, because
Yeah.
in two years ago, you looked at this conference and you're like, well, shoot, you got Minnesota was playing at a super high level when Kirk Cousins was healthy. You had Philadelphia obviously making the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. The Niners were right there. The Lions were starting to ascend, but they hadn't reached this point yet. That's when they had that Week 17 game and helped, I think, knock Green Bay out of the playoffs and all that. I think we got to the point now where it's thinned out a little bit. Philadelphia's got more questions. They're playing much better than I think they did in the first couple of weeks, but they've got questions to answer. The whole NFC North's really good, as we've discussed. Packers won. Lions, I think, is 19-6 combined record, and
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
take out the two divisional games, and it's an even better record than that. So, the NFC North is where it's at right now. I do think Detroit's the best team. It's probably Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago right now fighting with Philadelphia for the next spot. I would not sleep on Seattle. I think the Seahawks have really good talent. I think their defensive scheme's really good. The having Mike McDonald, a defensive-minded coach who had that great philosophy in Baltimore and played similar style to what maybe we see in Minnesota, that's really doing wonders for them right now. So I put them kind of in the next tier. I wonder about exposure, because Sam Darnold, had struggles elsewhere. He had struggles in other spots. The Jets, though, that's not a great organization. Okay, like the structure of that place,
Right,
it's just
right.
not conducive to building, a great franchise right now. And ownership, whether good or bad, is very indicative of how an organization is going to go. So taking that out of the equation, Sam's gotten a great opportunity in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. But there's still this question of exposure. How many starts before defensive coordinators start to figure out how can we take away the things that make this guy really good right now? And you're getting into that point, getting closer to the second half of the season, where somebody like Jared Goff, I think he's added to his game, right? The ability to maneuver against the blitz. We asked Jared about that. Like he and Sam are the two best quarterbacks, at least going into last week, in the NFL against the blitz. Highest yards per attempt, highest efficiency rates. Baker Mayfield's played really well against the blitz as well. But Jared, that's different for him. He's been better against pressure. He's been better against the blitz this year than he has been in years past. We asked him, is there anything different? Like, how do you do that? He goes, I think it's just experience. I think it's knowing the answers a little bit better. I think a lot of that has to do with Ben Johnson and the game plans as well. So I think as he starts to establish where he's at and continues to build off those things, the exposure is what worries me about some of the other quarterbacks in this league right now. I worry about that with Caleb Williams in Chicago. I think the season for the Bears is playing out exactly how I thought it would. And I do the Bears preseason game. So we kind of talked a lot about this before the season began. Soft first half of the schedule. They're probably going to start slow offensively as Williams ramps up and the offense gets comfortable. And now they're playing really well against that soft schedule. What's going to happen in a few weeks, in about a month, 3 weeks, whatever it is, when they start to play their divisional games? They start to play Green Bay and Minnesota and Detroit. All that's jammed into the last 9 weeks of the season. So I worry about exposure for the other teams. I don't worry about that with Detroit. Obviously, they're going to have to keep building great game plans. Goff is still going to have to play at a very high level. They're going to have to keep adding wrinkles every week, but they're doing that at a higher level than I think other teams are, and they have a better track record of it the last couple of seasons. So that's why I think Detroit, for the moment, is clearing the rest of the NFC. I don't know by how much. It's still a slim margin, but it's still pretty obvious that Detroit has the highest ceiling of any team in this conference.
Dan Campbell was on the radio this morning and did mention that Brad Holmes is working the phones. Did you get a sense from talking to them over the weekend that, yes, they're going to make some sort of trade to replace Aiden Hutchinson, or at least, they've been trying from within and everything else, but do you see a blockbuster or a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby? Zadarius Smith wouldn't be a blockbuster, but do you see something like that coming Detroit's way before November 5th?
I don't doubt that's going to be the conversation for the next week plus, because, listen, to Brad's credit, he's built organizational depth, but it's hard to replace gravitational players in the aggregate. And I think Aiden Hutchinson is probably one of, I don't know, 5 or 6 pass rushers in this league that you would consider a gravitational pass rusher, where everybody on Tuesday is circling line item number 1 as number 97. Like, that's the guy we have to take out. That's how teams feel about the Raiders with Crosby. That's how they feel about the Browns with Garrett. There's a handful of guys like the TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. Like, that's how good Hutchinson has been. Again, 7.5 sacks in a really short amount of time to lead the league. So that's probably going to be a conversation. Those are probably going to be the main conversations in the next couple of weeks. The difference is it's the cost benefit of this. Brad has spent the last few years building up organizational depth about as well as any team. I think the Niners are right there. You know, Greg's made this point. I've talked about it. Mark Sanchez, my normal partner, has talked about this. The teams that build the best are the ones that have the highest potential once you get into December and then into January and then into playoff time, because they withstand the attrition. You know, they're able to overcome the injuries. And I don't know how much you can ask of, you know, a team like San Francisco at this point with all the injuries they have. You know, it's a lot to ask. But that's why you build up organizational depth. And I think that's where the Lions are at. The cost benefit is it worth it to take that hit to your depth if you really believe, and I think Brad Holmes might really believe, that this is the one, that this is the team, that if they have that one transformational gravitational piece on defense to change teams' game plans and allow the back end to play a little bit more free, their offense is clearly good enough, number 1 offense in the league. Their defense has a lot of star talent at multiple levels, less on the front now, but still on the back end. If he believes this is the team, then I think it's a good cost benefit to mortgage some of your organizational depth to go hit a home run with. I think a player like Myles Garrett would be thrilled to come to Detroit. I think the type of guy he is, I think his teammates really like him. I think, you know, he's had good reviews from guys for the most part where that have gone through Cleveland and played with Myles. He's a pleasant guy. In my very limited interactions with him, I'm not going to pretend I know the guy personally. We're buddies, and I can tell you how his character is. But like, we've had very good interactions with him. I think he would be a nice fit, and I think it'd be a home run piece for a team that legitimately has a shot to win the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, no question about it. And right now he's in purgatory in Cleveland, as is Max in Vegas. Those are rough spots right now. Adam, you're the man. Thanks so much for doing this. You sounded great this week. Hope we get more of your games later on in the year, but keep it up, man. Thanks so much.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Matt. Thanks so much, buddy.
There was Adam Amin with us right here on Locked On Lions. Always enjoy the conversation with Adam. He did a great job today with Greg Olsen. Really good team. Really a lot of fun. And Greg Olsen should be the number 1 analyst. He should still be there, but that's another topic for another day. Locked On Lions today. Thanks for making us your first listen on a Tuesday. More to come this week, and we'll find out what all of the players and Dan Campbell think of the Jameson Williams suspension tomorrow.